The best live sport. 5 Live's Festive Football.
Coming up.
Goes for the curler!
We'll have live commentaries featuring Spurs versus Southampton, Liverpool against Swansea, Newcastle v Man City, Crystal Palace against Arsenal.
They've won the Old Firm derby!
Celtic versus Rangers. Manchester United take on Southampton.
The best live sport. Christmas Football 2017 on 5 Live.
Something very special!
For full listings, click, tap or swipe bbc.co.uk/5 Live. This is your football station.
5 Live and 5 Live Sports Extra.
First for news and the best live sport. This is BBC 5 Live. 5 Live Investigates.
Hello, welcome along. Adrian Goldberg with you, and on 5 Live Investigates this morning. Fancy a flutter? Millions of people do, and for many of us it's a harmless pastime, betting a few pounds on the football or racing and hoping to win a few extra quid at the weekend. But today we explore the other side of an industry that emptied almost £14 billion out of punters' pockets last year. Our undercover investigation, which you'll hear shortly, has already prompted the regulator, the Gambling Commission, to launch its own inquiry. Now, it's estimated that more than 2 million people in the UK are either problem gamblers or at risk of addiction. And the big names in the industry say they encourage responsible gambling by allowing those with a problem to exclude themselves from betting shops and online. But do they really want to help gambling addicts overcome their problem? Or is someone who just can't resist a punt their ideal customer? Let's hear from Paul, not his real name, who this week talked me through his descent into gambling addiction, an addiction that he says wrecked his life. He began by telling me how it all began.
I started gambling from, fairly young age, 19, 20, just putting a little bit of money on the football, the accumulators, pure enjoyment, really. I always made my Saturdays enjoying the football that little bit more. Probably like, the majority of other gamblers in that way. I think it was then many, many years later. I mean, that was when I was 19, 20. I'm 40 now. And, really in the last 5 years is where it's really taken a grip. I think the big thing that's changed is the online, gone from having cash in your hand, which is bad enough, to actually is kind of not real anymore. It's online and it's a number. And I think that's when it started to take grip. And, there could be many reasons behind that. There could be many triggers behind that. But the fact is, that's really when it started to, what I would say, become a major, major problem.
How big a problem has it become in your life?
I've got family. I'm divorced now, but I've got a family and partner, and I've got children, and I've always had a good job. And I should have, a house and a mortgage, and probably several times over. But really, I've got nothing. I live hand to mouth, and the amounts of money that I've spent, it's difficult to even comprehend for me. Never mind anybody else. It's become I'm a very, in every other aspect of my life, I'm a very rational person. I've got a job where I need to be very rational. I manage people and I manage money to a degree. But it's the most irrational thing you could possibly do. What I do, it's become such a big problem that I've got to the stage where, every bit of money that comes into my bank will disappear immediately as it comes in. It's got to the stage for me where I need to get rid of it. I don't gamble to win, which sounds crazy. I actually gamble to lose. And every time I win, I have a moment of relief that I can prolong the pain. And it really is like that. And I know it sounds ridiculous because it is. It sounds so irrational because it is. That you actually get to the stage where it's not about, and if I won £1 million tomorrow on the lottery, all that would do was prolong something that I want to continue to do, as much pain as it causes me.
It does sound absolutely incredible, the idea that you would say that you don't gamble to win. What is it then that you gamble for?
You know, it's so, you know, it's difficult to even explain. I can, right now as I sit here talking to you, you know, with no money in my bank, I have zero desire to gamble. It's the moment that there's something there, and it's the moment, if I say to myself, you know, I'm gonna put £50 on something, I know deep down in my heart, I 100% believe that is it. But I also, on the flip side, know that once it starts, it can't stop, because it takes a hold of me like nothing's ever taken a hold of me, and life is not real anymore. There is no, it's like I'm in another world. You know, I can't even really explain how that feels. You're zoned out, and it gets to the point where you want to get rid of it quickly, but at the same time, as it disappears, you panic, because it means I can't prolong it anymore. But then once it's gone, there's a panic and then a relief. I don't even know if any of this makes sense, but because it doesn't even make sense to me.
It is absolutely fascinating, because people might think that you gamble in order to hopefully win money, to gain material possessions. As you describe it, it almost seems like the experience of gambling, seeing what happens after you've placed a bet, is an end in itself.
Yeah, it's you know, a long time ago that was absolutely the goal. You know, and even today, if I go into a bookies and put, you know, £20 on a football accumulator, and I'm watching the accumulator and I'm watching the football results come in because I love my football, absolutely, it's to win, and the excitement of when I've won is great, but it's because I enjoy the football and I enjoy the thrill of winning there. When it's the online, it's completely different to that. There's a sense there somewhere it's the win, but not to win. I might have a big win and go, you know, this is going to pay this bill, and it's going to buy my kids this, and it's going to do this, and deep inside my heart, for a moment, I 100% believe in my heart that money is going to be used for something. But then I know that that's not going to be the case.
What are you going to do with the money?
I know the money is going to be gambled away. It's like, it doesn't matter whether it's a £1 spin, a £10 spin, a £100 spin, a £200 spin. It makes no difference. I don't comprehend that £200 could buy, you know, my kids some clothes, or, you know, 2 weeks shopping or anything like that. It doesn't even enter your mind that it's like that. It's not what your mind is processing at the time, because if it could, then I wouldn't be doing it.
What impact has it had on your relationships or your ability to provide for your children?
I think, you know, there's several ways. I mean, you know, as much as there is huge shame and guilt, which really can, you know, put you in a world of not depression, because I'm not going to be one to say that I suffer from depression if I feel low. You know, that there's a huge amount of guilt and shame there, but also the impact it has on your family, your friends, the people around you. Many of them, some of them directly and some of them indirectly, because, you know, my children don't know, and I don't want them to know. Many friends don't know, and nor would I ever want them to know. But then it's having an impact. It had an impact on my marriage massively, and some people around that, and a few friends, because really, you know, that money wasn't my money. Even though I was spending my money, it wasn't my money. It was my family's money. It was my children's money. It was, and that pressure on those people, especially your partner, when they don't understand, you know, what it's like going through your mind, nor am I expecting them to. It's just, everybody could say it's the most selfish thing you could do, and I agree, it is. it's the family and friends that are actually losing out. I can handle the fact that tomorrow's another day and I'll be able to get another job, or I'll be able to look after myself. But what I'm doing to everybody else is what drives me into very, very low and dark places sometimes. And that's not being self-pitying. It's genuine that when you do come out of it, the people I am thinking about is my children, even though they don't know, because I do look and go, they could have had this and they could have had that and they could have had a better life. It's the most selfish thing, really, in a way. I suppose I'm stealing from those people.
What a remarkable, incredible interview. Paul, bearing his soul there, talking to me about how online gambling has taken over his life. And we'll hear shortly about what happened to him when he tried to get himself barred. We'd love to hear your stories as well, especially if you've tried to get yourself excluded, either online, like Paul, or at betting shops. Comments coming in already. Simon in Nottingham says, do remind listeners Tony Blair's government, who I voted for, relaxed the gambling laws. This horrified many Labour voters. Billions of pounds are stripped out of the poorest sector of our society. Sickening, frightening and irreversible. And John says, I completely understand what that gambling caller is talking about. Never heard it said before, but I gamble on things which I will never win. I gamble to lose. It is a craving state. It's devastated my life. No one can understand it or even recognise it as a problem. Keep your comments coming. You can text us at 85058, email goldberg@bbc.co.uk, or on Twitter, we're at BBC5Live. It's 11:16.
Across the UK.
This is BBC 5 Live. 5 Live investigates.
Now, on 5 Live investigates this morning, we're asking how serious is the betting industry in helping problem gamblers? Our reporter Rob Cave went undercover to find out how the system works for those who've tried to protect themselves by getting barred from the bookies. Rob's with me now. Morning, Rob. And Rob, the industry says it cares about customers like Paul, who we've just been hearing from, who are addicted to betting. Now, I mentioned earlier that as an industry, they make almost £14 billion a year in the UK. How much of that do they plough back into helping people like him?
Well, the honest answer is not much, because last year the betting industry invested just £8 million in addiction treatment, and that's less than 0.1% of their income.
Wow, so a tiny fraction. And Paul was an online gambler, addicted to online casinos, but you've been looking at the high street bookies.
Yeah, because although there's been a huge growth in online casinos, betting shops are still big business. There are more than 8,500 of them across the country, and the days when punters just looked for football or racing odds, they've long gone. One of the big earners for the betting shops are the fixed odds betting terminals. There are about 34,000 of these machines across the UK, and they bring the industry in about £1.8 billion a year. So that's well over half the overall income of all betting shops. Yeah, and some of our listeners will know what a fixed odd betting terminal is. Those who don't, though, basically they're slot machines. You either put in cash or you get your credit that you've signed up to with your credit or debit card, and you're hoping to win big on roulette or maybe a simulated racing game. Yeah, but the big difference compared to the traditional slot machines is the amount of money that you can stake and the amount of money that you can win. Some allow customers to spend up to £300 a minute, and the industry regulator, that's the Gambling Commission, they've found evidence of a big increase in addiction to these machines. So £300 a minute, and we're not talking about a high-stakes casino here, we're talking about your local high-street betting shop. So what if you do become addicted and want to protect yourself, and you ask the bookies to ban you from playing? Yeah. Well, for the shops, there's something called the Multi-Operator Self-Exclusion Scheme, or MOSES, and that's designed to get all the bookies in your local area to ban you. Been running for well over 18 months, so it's pretty well established. Now, I called the scheme posing as a gambling addict in Grimsby, and that's a town with at least 21 bookmakers that we could find.
If you would like to self-exclude or are an existing customer, please press 1.
Your call is being transferred.
Yeah, I tend to use the town centre ones.
Yeah.
But what I've done is I've made a list of as many as I can find in Grimsby itself. So I've sort of looked at some that are in other bits of Grimsby that I don't usually go to.
So there you go, Rob. You've signed up. You are now effectively banned. You've asked anyway to be banned from all 21 betting shops that you could identify.
I'm banned in Grimsby.
Yes.
Now, what happens next is that I now need to send my photo to the Senate Group. That's the organisation that runs the scheme, and they then distribute my photo and my details to the 21 bookies I've asked to be barred from. Now, we gave them 10 working days to circulate the details to those shops. And my plan then was to play the fixed odd betting terminals and see how many of the bookies would kick me out. And this is how I got on.
Let's see what we got here.
Place your bet.
Roulette, I think.
No more bet. 34. Red.
Yeah, I'll have a coffee, please, if you've got one. White, please, sugar.
I did eventually get some interaction with the staff. Somebody came over and offered me a cup of coffee while I was at the machine. So some interaction with staff, if not exactly exclusion. Right, we're in the southern end of Grimsby now, and this one's a William Hill in the usual kind of parade of shops. Yeah, so let's give this one a go. Come on. Lovely, thanks very much. Bye. Not a difficult one at all, really. Again, I managed to win £5 on that one. But I did do a lot of double or quit, so you can get a sense of just how tempting it is to keep hitting the double or quit button when you're ahead. Until, you know, in my case, I lost about £8. Very small stake, so you have to imagine that multiplied, really. Lovely, thank you. Bye-bye. So that was Coral. Now, across the main road, where there's a Betfred, which I'm going to give that one a try now. It's now about 7 o'clock in the evening. We've managed to visit about 10, 11 of the shops on the list. I've managed to bet on the fixed odds betting terminal in each of those shops. I've sat at the machines, I've played the machines, I've won some money, I've lost even more money, and nobody said a word to me. And in each of these shops, I have gone up to the counter and handed the cashier my slip. I've not been recognised, even though they have got my photograph on file somewhere in the shop.
There you go. You've asked to be excluded, Rob, from 21 betting shops in Grimsby. That's the end of day one. 10 shops you visited, and you weren't stopped from betting in a single one of them. You did get a couple of free cups of coffee.
I got a couple of cups of coffee, but not one stopped me. Now, even if they did recognise me, and I don't think they did recognise me, that they certainly didn't do anything to stop me.
And is there any excuse to be made in defence of the shops? Maybe they were particularly busy when you went in?
Not really, one or two of them. But, you know, lots of betting shops are now open at 9 in the morning, and they don't close until quite late in the evening. So I was in and out of all of them at all times of day and night. It was also midweek, and none of them got particularly busy. Although I have to say a lot of the activity that was there was centred on the fixed odd betting terminals. OK,
we've heard about day one. You visited 10 betting shops, weren't ejected from any. 11 to go. Let's see what happened on day two.
This is Freeman Street, and there are two shops that we're going to try here. One of them's a William Hill, and one of them's a Ladbrokes. I'll play it safe this time.
Place your bets, please.
Oh, nearly.
Black odd.
Thanks very much.
Sorry, have you got any idea?
I have, yeah. Well,
Just have a look at it. You resemble somebody who's self-excluded.
I have, but I haven't had a lot. All right, no, I appreciate it. OK. Gonna collect?
Cash it in.
Yeah.
Cash it in and I'll
OK. I'm gonna have to put the limits on and stuff. But yeah. No. All right, no. Great, good. Thanks very much. Yeah. Bye-bye. I've been into a William Hills, which we think is number 16 or number 17 on our list. I've started to bet. I put about £1 75 into games on a fixed odds betting terminal, and I've been spotted, I've been rumbled. The managers walked over, told me that I was self-excluded, and told me I shouldn't be gambling. So I've cashed in my money and then apologised and thanked him and moved on. So it does work, but not terribly impressive record for the rest of the shops.
So it took a while, Rob, but you were eventually spotted.
I got rumbled, yes.
Yeah.
And that was a William Hill. Now, that was the 17th shop on our list. And it did happen again, and that was on the last shop of our list, which was another William Hill shop. So that was at the very end of the day. But in 19 out of the 21 cases, nothing happened, and I was left to play on the fixed odd betting terminals in each one of them.
Thanks, Rob. And you can see video of Rob's undercover investigation, well worth watching, on the BBC News website now and also on the Radio 5 Live Facebook page. Now, we took our findings to the Association of British Bookmakers who represent the bookies. They described them as a disappointing result and accept that the current self-exclusion scheme isn't without its flaws. They say they are continually developing proved systems and seeking to reduce reliance on staff to recognise those that have self-excluded. An organisation called the Senate Group, funded by the gambling industry, runs the self-exclusion scheme. Their chief executive is George Kidd. So what did he make of our findings?
We'd want to learn our lessons from that and understand what happened and why it happened. I think one of the things that strikes me with this episode, as I've understood it from yourselves, is that this was, somebody registering and then going into a place where they were not local and trying to play and bet when they were in that locality. One of the things with this scheme is making it as pertinent, as relevant to people as possible. So, I self-exclude where I live or where I work. And part of it is that recognition and awareness.
Although you will understand that many people live in busy towns and cities where even if they've sought to exclude from their local betting shop, there'll be many other alternative betting shops that they can go to. And the point of the self-exclusion scheme is that they should be barred from all of them. So are you admitting really that it's not a very good scheme and it doesn't work?
No, I think this description of the scheme is national and not good. I would challenge both points. The scheme is for people self-excluding locally. There are 8,500, 9,000 betting shops in the UK. If I were to self-exclude from them all, and it was based on visual recognition, A, I don't go into 8,500 betting shops, and B, it would be a challenge for the people to recognise me. People bet locally, or they bet where they work, but they have habit, and they know where they go to gamble.
Sure, but, I live in Birmingham. I might seek to be excluded from the bookmakers in the area of Birmingham where I live. I could drive my car 5 minutes and find another high street, another 5 minutes and find another high street. So as a method of stopping people in big towns and cities from gambling in betting shops, effectively you're acknowledging that it's not that good. It doesn't really work.
No, I wouldn't acknowledge that at all, actually. We paid some people to come and do independent research. We used GambleAware to go and contract for people to come and look at the scheme and talk to people who had used the scheme. 70% of them said they had never once tried to go back into a premise afterwards. Partly embarrassment, partly the self-discipline of saying, I want this thing to work. 83% of them said it actually made me stop gambling completely or reduce my gambling. So I would have a concern that if something's gone wrong in your trial, and it has, then we've got to learn the lessons. But I wouldn't want people to think self-exclusion doesn't work. It's a huge benefit for a great number of people.
Sure, but 30% of the people in that survey didn't say that they hadn't gone back into bookmakers. And we live very mobile lives these days. People might travel around the country or around a particular region for work. Would you accept that we need a better scheme than this one to help exclude people who are problem gamblers?
I would accept that we have to keep trying harder. Can we make the scheme better? Are there lessons with technology? Yes, of course there are going to be. But I think that, don't lose the four-letter word at the beginning of the word self-exclusion. This is about individuals taking a decision to self-exclude.
People listening to this might say, well, look, the betting industry comes under pressure quite frequently because of the massive scale of problem gambling in this country. It sets up a scheme of self-exclusion, which it then uses to tell the regulator and the government that it's taking action. in practice, that self-exclusion scheme is almost impossible for betting shops around the country to monitor, and it's very easy for problem gamblers to find ways around. It's no solution at all, is it?
I think there's a distinction here between people who self-exclude and want to take control of their gambling or stop their gambling. There's another definition of take control. And those people who have a very serious gambling problem. And for those people, self-exclusion might help, but it's probably only part of the answer. They ought to be talking to GamCare, they ought to be taking counselling, and there's a bigger challenge there.
Sure, but you take my point, though, that there's a scheme which has so many loopholes in it, which is manifestly so easy to get around, is effectively a sop by the betting industry saying to government and to regulators, we are doing something, when in reality the betting industry is doing very, very little.
I take the point, but I think that's a misdescription. The requirement to have a company scheme and to be part of a multi-operator scheme is a requirement set by the regulator, not set or created by the betting companies. So it's the Gambling Commission that says you must have your own scheme and you must be party to a multi-operator scheme. So the accountability in the end is to the regulator.
We've done our own little mystery shop and found 19 of 21 bookies in one town did not exclude somebody who had sought to exclude under your scheme. Why don't you do regular mystery shops like we did?
The idea of doing mystery shopping, it's something we've got to sit down with the Gambling Commission, with the industry and sketch out. I mean, the risk is
it's not that difficult, is it? We've done it.
No, there's a difference. No, you're right. We need to work out what we can do that's better. Your results, are a bit of a wake-up call, but, how we do this is something we'll have to sit down and work out with the Gambling Commission and with the industry.
There we go. George Kidd of the Senate Group admitting that our research is a bit of a wake-up call for the industry. You'll have heard him mention as well a survey into self-exclusion carried out by Gamble Aware. We'll hear what they have to say about that in a little while. And loads of your comments coming in. I'm going to try and read as many as I possibly can this morning. Text us on 85058 or at BBC 5 Live. It's 11:32.
More live Premier League football than anyone else. This is BBC 5 Live.
Richard Foster with the headlines.
Emergency services say a crash in Birmingham in which 6 people were killed has been very difficult and upsetting. 3 people who died were in the same car, the others in a black cab. It happened on Belgrave Middleway between the city centre and Edgbaston. 18-year-old workers will be automatically enrolled into company pension schemes under government plans. Since 2012, companies have had to provide pensions for all staff over the age of 22 unless they opt out. 2 police officers are critically ill after they were hit by a car in North London. It happened on the North Circular in Neasden in the early hours of this morning. 3 people, including the car driver, have been arrested. And an average of 11.6 million people watched the Strictly final last night. Watch out, I'm about to announce the winner. The peak audience was 13.1 million. The show was won by the Holby City actor Joe McFadden. That's the news. Don Busby has the sport.
Thank you. Needing to avoid defeat to keep the Ashes series alive, England trail Australia by 127 runs going into day 5 of the 3rd test in Perth. Johnny Bairstow and Dawid Malan will continue their partnership with England on 132 for 4 with 6 wickets remaining. Simon Mann has the details from day 4.
Rain brought an early end to play, but Australia made enough progress to be confident of regaining the Ashes on the final day. England began their innings needing to bat 4.5 sessions. They lost Stoneman and Cook inside 8 overs to Hazelwood, and Root edged Lyon's first ball to slip via Payne's gloves. Vince, who made a stylish 55, was cleaned up by a superb delivery from Stark to emphasise Australia's superiority. Australia had extended their lead by a further 113 before they declared soon after lunch. Anderson pinned Marsh and Smith LBW early on and finished with 4 wickets. It was merely the warm-up act, though, for the significant action of the day, and barring some heroic batting or some inclement weather, it feels just a question of when Australia will win the series and the Ashes.
Manchester United can move above Chelsea to reclaim 2nd place in the Premier League outright with a result at West Brom this afternoon. Jose Mourinho isn't underestimating the Baggies, despite them now sitting in 19th place under new boss Alan Pardew.
I think Tony assembled a very good squad. Lots of players, of experienced players, of physical players, adapted to the Premier League with know-how, lots of experience, I repeat. So the squad is good, the players are good, the stadium is enthusiastic, the match is difficult.
From 4:30, updates of the game on 5 Live Sport. Before, I beg your pardon, well, I've lost my place completely. I'll try again. Oh yeah, 4:30. This is the one I'm trying to tell you about. Liverpool against Bournemouth. Jurgen Klopp says that he's looking to take no notice of Bournemouth's run of 5 games without a win.
Big respect what they are doing there in a probably difficult situation. I saw a few games of Bournemouth this year, and I had a few really. They didn't get the points they deserved. Maybe were unlucky in a few moments. So, but how we all know, from behind they are coming. So Bournemouth needs all the points as well, and so that will be a tough game for sure.
Scottish Premiership leaders Celtic are at Hearts, getting underway in an hour's time. 5 Live Sport with you, of course, from midday. Now, Billy Joe Saunders has demanded a unification fight with Gennady Golovkin. That's after a unanimous points victory over David Lemieux in the defence of his WBO middleweight title in Canada. And after yesterday's success for Bath against Toulon, Wasps face La Rochelle today. That's on 5 Live Sports Extra from 12:45. Saracens play Clermont-Auvergne. Ospreys come up against Northampton, and Leicester face Munster in the Champions Cup. The final of the Scottish Open snooker gets underway later on as well. This lunchtime, in fact, it sees Neil Robertson taking on Chow Yu Peng. The former world number 1 Robertson, who's now slipped to 20th in the rankings, says he's on the up.
I think with the hard work I've been putting in the last couple of months, I've taken my game to a new level. And I think this week I've played consistently really well. Yeah, all my matches I've scored really heavily. Long potting's been fantastic, and I've been aggressive. And I think that's down to, having that confidence in myself with all the practice I've been doing the last 2 months.
And finally for now, success for Justin Rose at the Indonesian Masters Golf. He won the event by 8 shots on a staggering 29 under par.
This is BBC 5 Live on digital, online, smartphone and tablet.
Good morning. So we've got the wet weather with us at the moment across Scotland and Northern Ireland. That rain clears away slowly through the afternoon with brighter skies following. Should be some sunny spells, a few showers in the northwest. It's turning milder, the highest temperature at the moment, across the south of Northern Ireland, where we're seeing highs of 12 degrees Celsius. And those milder conditions will spread in fairly widely across Scotland and Northern Ireland. For England and Wales, meanwhile, cloudy and wet as the rain falls across East Anglia over the next hour or two. Temperatures are still around freezing, so we have got a risk of some icy stretches here for a time. It will stay quite chilly even through the afternoon, with those slowly picking up temperatures 3 to 7 degrees Celsius for these areas, whereas Western England and Wales should become quite mild for a time later this afternoon, with highs reaching double figures. Chris Fawkes, 5 Live Weather.
On the roads, Lancashire and the southbound M6, slow traffic because of the earlier accident between junction 27 at Standish and 26 the Oral Interchange, but all lanes have reopened. M54 in Shropshire on the westbound carriageway, queuing traffic because of an earlier crash and surface water as well. That's around junction 7 at Wellington. Neath Port Talbot, eastbound on the M4, queuing traffic and one lane's closed, all because of a crash between junction 40 at Port Talbot and junction 39. And in Hertfordshire on the M25 anti-clockwise, very slow traffic because of the earlier accident between junction 24 at Potters Bar and 23 at the A1M. Richard Foster, 5 Live Travel.
'Twas the night before Christmas, and all through the house, not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. But this silent night would soon cease to be, for exciting things lay under the tree. What are these gifts we're talking about? Well, if they love radio, they'll soon find out.
DAB radios, connected speakers or tablets. This Christmas, give the gift of digital radio. With digital radio, your loved ones can enjoy all their usual radio stations, plus extra digital-only BBC stations. If you love radio, give digital. Search online for BBC Digital Radio.
5 Live is digital. Get the app, search for 5 Live podcasts, and listen on digital radio.
Hello, welcome along if you've just joined us. I'm Adrian Goldberg and this is 5 Live Investigate, asking today, is the betting industry doing enough to protect gambling addicts? Not if the results of our research are anything to go by. We went to Grimsby to test the scheme that allows problem punters to protect themselves by asking to be barred from bookie shops. Our reporter found himself rejected by only 2 out of 21 premises in the town, even though he had asked to be excluded and should have had his photo ID sent to every shop. The rest were happy to allow him to keep on risking his cash at slot machines known as fixed odds betting terminals. So many of your comments coming in this morning. Peter in Cardiff says, my daughter describes her so-called gambling addiction in a way very similar to your interviewee. She also self-harms, cutting herself, and recently made the connection. Throwing all the money away that you have in your possession at any one time is not gambling, it's a form of self-harming. Thiru says, after self-excluding myself and losing £8,000 in 2016, they allowed me to play to lose £5,000 in February 2017 in Grimsby. When I contacted the team to ask me why they allowed me, the answer was, it's your responsibility. What's the point? I'm a loser again, even though I took precautions. Coming in on the text as well, I'm a middle-class professional living in North Yorkshire. Online gambling nearly destroyed my life. Despite gambling tens of thousands, at no time did the online company contact me with concerns. Finally, my brother contacted them and with my permission got me a life ban. They had initially offered a 5-year ban. Gamblers Anonymous offers support. There's also a clinic in Soho, but little else from the NHS. And this one more for now. I've been listening to your discussion about gambling, have been into rehab for 6 months where they recommend self-exclusion. It clearly doesn't work with problem gamblers, as like with any addiction, the addict will always find a way to beat the system. Therefore, in my opinion, it's clearly just the bookmakers trying to be seen to be doing something positive, but in reality, they welcome us back every time. Do get in touch, drop us a text to 85058 at BBC 5 Live on social media. Now, a little earlier we heard from Paul, a gambling addict who told us that his online casino addiction helped put paid to his marriage. So what happened when he tried to get himself banned from the online casino sites that he says have ruined his life? Just have a listen to this.
I started self-excluding on the websites, and I went through a phase of even signing up to websites to exclude myself, knowing that there'll be another one popping up tomorrow. So some of them, it was very easy. You could just press a button, self-exclude, and you're self-excluded for 6 months. Other ones you had to email in or write in, and I had a day where I really just made an effort to do that. So I might have a day like that where I felt amazing that I've done that, and I've helped myself and I've helped the other people around me. Then, and I felt great. But then, truly in my heart, I believe that was it at that moment. And then the day after, I find a way to justify it to myself, and there is a new site popping up every single day. And even some of the sites that I self-excluded from, there's one in particular right now that I self-excluded from, and I've got 3 different accounts with that particular company.
But how does that work? People will be thinking, well, Paul has gone on self-excluded, asked to be not allowed back on that particular site. How then can you still play on that site?
It's just a different email address and a different bank card. It's just so simple, I can still put in the same address, same name, same birthday, and these are not small casinos. These are some of the biggest in the UK that we all know.
So even though you enter the same name, the same date of birth and the same address, because the email address might be different or the bank account might be different, the self-exclusion is meaningless.
Oh, and they email me every single day. I get emails, I get letters through the post, just the same marketing stuff that, they do. I mean, they send you free money, they send you gifts.
So casinos where you have attempted to self-exclude, after that, have sent you offers of free bets, free money, as you call it, have offered you various gifts to encourage you to keep gambling.
Recently, there was one that I self-excluded from, and they kept sending me an email saying there's money in your account, and I kept getting this same email, and I just kept away from it. And then I opened it one day, and they put £200 in my account as a bonus, and there we go. I've started again. I got an email from another one that said, pick one of these gifts, and pick a gift, and these are expensive gifts, £300-400 gifts.
What kind of gifts?
One of them was it was a choice of 6 or 7, and it was laptop or iPad or coffee machine, things like that, or gambling chips, whatever.
When you've made the effort to exclude yourself from an individual online casino and they put money into your account, trying to tempt you back with gifts, what do you think of those companies?
You know, I feel like I initially texted into the programme when you were doing another programme, and it made me so mad that some of the people that were on there talking, making out that they were trying to do the right thing for the industry. And it just made me so mad because they just didn't get it. They didn't see the real picture, nor would they ever want to see the real picture.
How would you sum up your attempts to exclude yourself from online gambling?
Just a massive failure. The only person to blame for that is me. You know, I accept that. But if you're going to put something in place, there's no point putting it in place if it's not going to work. They have to do it because it's regulated and they have to put it there. Some of them make it very, very difficult for you, and they don't really want it to happen anyway.
There you go, Paul telling me about his unsuccessful attempts to exclude himself from online gambling sites. Now, Matt Zarb-Cousins is from the Campaign for Fairer Gambling. Morning to you, Matt.
Hi, Adrian.
And also Clive Hawkswood from the Remote Gambling Association. Clive, hello.
Morning, Adrian.
Now, you represent the online gambling industry, and we're hearing a story there of a man who self-excludes. He's then offered a laptop, an iPad, a coffee machine, even put £200 into his account so he can start gambling again. How can that happen?
Well, it's completely unacceptable, as you'd expect. I mean, if he's been self-excluded, that's a clear breach of a licence condition. So first off, it's morally completely the wrong thing to do, but also from a regulatory perspective, it's outlawed. So anything like that should be brought to the attention of the gambling regulator.
Well, clearly it goes on, though, doesn't it? And I know you're introducing your own multi-operator exclusion scheme for online casinos next year. Given what we've heard from Paul and what we've heard throughout the programme, what confidence can we have that it's going to work?
Well, I think what we've heard there is a really helpful explanation of the problem, and what we're trying to develop here and present is a solution to that. So GamStop will be this new national self-exclusion scheme, aiming to go live in the spring. And what it will let people do is to self-exclude from the GamStop website in a single process from all licensed operators.
Sure, but if, as in Paul's example, you change your email address, then who is to say that the online casinos won't let you bet again, even if you've got the same name, even if you're using the same bank card, even if you've got the same address?
The difference here, of course, is that GamStop will hold a central database of self-excluders. So people will go to GamStop, they will put in all that information. Then every time someone seeks to access a gambling site, whether for betting or casinos or whatever, at login or they try to open a new account, that site will be pinged and there should be a match. Now, I'm sure he would say, and other problem gamblers at the more extreme end, that sometimes they will go to great lengths to appear to have a different identity, and so there are limits to all these systems.
But Clive, isn't the biggest limit that the fact that it's only applies to the licensed operators licensed by the Gambling Commission, and the problem gambler, they want to gamble, they're going to go perhaps to other operators that aren't licensed by the Gambling Commission. You can find any number of sites online. I think there's about 35,000 in the world. So I think it's a step forward, but a very small step forward. If the objective is to stop these people getting signed up to sites and stop them gambling, I think it's...
OK, we'll let Clive answer that point, Matt.
Yeah, thank you. No, I completely agree, Matt. As I said, look, there is no complete solution for this. What we've got to try and do is make what's available to us work as best we can. And this is a big step forward. Where we will rely on the regulator is to police those unlicensed sites and try and keep them out of the British market. It is illegal for them to take bets from UK-based customers. Now, Matt's right again, and this ties in with the whole issue of problematic gambling behaviour. At that harder end, when people really have lost control, they will sometimes do almost anything to get a bet on.
OK, let me ask Matt about your personal experience of this, Matt.
Well, I got addicted to fixed odds betting terminals in betting shops, and I did self-exclude, but I was able to gamble about 2 or 3 weeks after. And at this point, like all gambling addicts, people get addicted. if you're self-excluding, you've already lost a considerable amount of money, experienced a considerable amount of harm. And if the bookies aren't able to keep the subset of people that want to ban themselves out of the shops, then really, that's the bare minimum. These people they've not only have they got addicted, they've admitted they've got a problem, they've come to the bookies and said, please keep me out of the shops. And if they can't even do that, then really there's a question mark over whether they should even have these machines. And it's always these machines that are the cause of people getting self-excluded. If you ask any member of staff, they'll say that 99% of cases it's because people get addicted to fixed odds betting terminals. That's why they're self-excluding.
Well, it's interesting. One listener saying quite simply, nearly all of those who ask for self-exclusion from betting shops are excluding due to these fixed odd betting terminals. It's simple. Ban the things for good. Did Paul's story that we heard, Matt, resonate with you? Yeah,
very much so. Yeah, it's when you get addicted to gambling, it hijacks your reward circuitry in your brain. So your reward circuitry is there, so you do things that keep you alive. It gives you a good feeling when you do something like when you eat, you have a good feeling. So effectively, it sort of tricks your brain into thinking you need to gamble to stay alive, like any addiction. So really, we're talking about the bare minimum should be to stop these people gambling. And look, I mean, the GAM stop is one thing. I think it's long overdue. I think that it's been delayed for about a year. I'm not sure what the delay's all about, but the central register's one thing. But really, we have to look at the Gambling Commission should be fining betting shops for breaches of self-exclusion. And let me tell you, if they did that, if there was financial penalties, the industry would soon come up with a way of stopping people getting into the shops.
Yeah, one listener, Clive, has said to us, if you were banned from the bookies because you were too successful, winning too often, they'd soon recognise you and exclude you.
Yeah.
What is the delay, Clive, in setting up GamStop?
Well, I think you're right. It's taken longer than we would have all hoped. This process started back in sort of 2014-15. But it's worth remembering, originally, the intention was that the Gambling Commission would run this national self-exclusion, as is the case in every other jurisdiction. It was passed over to us. We were more than willing to take it on. But it's a huge tech project. So it was due to be delivered at the end of this year. We needed another few months just to make sure it worked properly.
Isn't the reality, Clive, that people who might be regarded as problem gamblers by the rest of us are regarded by the betting industry as good customers?
I think anybody in the industry thinks that should be moved out of the industry. The future of our industry is dependent on improving the safeguards for customers. That's the bottom line for everyone. If we don't get that, we're in the industry in real trouble. So our long-term future and viability depends on getting this sort of project right. OK,
well, we'll be checking to see if you do. Thank you very much indeed, Clive Hawkswood and Matt Zarb-Cousins as well. It's 8 minutes to 12.
First for news and the best live sport. This is BBC 5 Live. 5 Live investigates.
Yeah, today on 5 Live investigates, talking about the self-exclusion schemes for gambling addicts which don't work. Sarah Gardner is the executive director of the industry watchdog, the Gambling Commission. What's her reaction to what we found?
I'm sure your listeners will be as concerned as we are to hear that sort of result from this sort of exercise. Self-exclusion is an important tool in helping people to manage their gambling. What I would say is it's not the only tool, because actually if you think about it, by the time someone gets to the stage where they think they need to exclude from gambling in order to manage it, chances are they're quite far down the road of into problematic gambling behaviour.
I suppose the question is, though, whether it's an effective tool if so few bookmakers are picking up on individuals who have self-excluded. What's the point of it? It's a worthless exercise almost, isn't it?
Well, as I said, I mean, we will be interested in looking at the detail of the exercise you did. The self-exclusion scheme was actually evaluated by GambleAware last year, which showed that it had helped over 8 in 10 people who'd excluded to reduce their gambling or stop altogether. Clearly that isn't perfect. In addition, our latest industry statistics show that there were 18,000 known attempted breaches of self-exclusion, which so that's people who have been challenged by the industry when they've tried to gamble while self-excluded.
Isn't the underlying problem here that the betting industry wants to appear to be socially responsible, but that in reality much of their profit is driven by people who have a gambling difficulty, a gambling issue?
We are determined to drive improvements in behaviour across the industry in terms of the effort they put into reducing gambling-related harm. And it really is getting to a stage where there's nowhere to hide. So if I take self-exclusion as an example, actually, in August, we imposed a penalty of £7.8 million on 888 for failures in relation to self-exclusion.
That was online self-exclusion.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, there is nowhere to hide for operators who don't play by the rules.
But what about betting shop self-exclusion? When people notify, as our reporter did, the appropriate authority and say, look, we wish to self-exclude from betting shops, then turn up and 19 out of 21 allow them to gamble. That suggests that form of self-exclusion just isn't working.
Research done last year indicates that the enhanced self-exclusion measures, and there have been some big steps forward in self-exclusion with the development of multi-operator schemes in recent years, helped over 8 in 10 people who'd excluded to reduce their gambling or stop altogether. So that's a really valuable tool. As I said, self-exclusion isn't the only tool, and from our perspective, it's quite late in the process of problem gambling behaviour. So what we'd like to see is much more emphasis from gambling businesses on intervening at an earlier stage, so getting to know their customers, particularly regulars, looking out for those indicators that things might be not as much, so people looking, seeming anxious, people chasing losses. How can they use technology to monitor play in order to intervene at a really early stage before it gets to the point where someone feels they need to self-exclude?
There you go. That's Sarah Gardner. We heard Sarah there refer to a survey which appeared to show as many as 8 out of 10 problem gamblers were happy with self-exclusion schemes, really. Let's speak to Ian Corby from Gamble Aware, who commissioned that research. Hi, Ian.
Good morning, Adrian.
Is that a fair reflection on your research?
Well, the research which we commissioned from a company called Chrysalis was just looking at the scheme in the terms of its own ambitions. And let's be very clear about this. The regulator set really modest ambitions for this self-exclusion scheme, and we've heard today that the industry is struggling to even meet those low ambitions. So I don't think that scheme is any longer fit for purpose.
Because it was used by both the British Bookmakers Association in their response to us and the Senate Group who administer the self-exclusion scheme, suggesting that there was widespread satisfaction with the current state of self-exclusion schemes.
Indeed, and it showed that 1 in 20 people were able to breach those self-exclusions, and half of the managers who run those exclusion schemes were worried that it wouldn't stand being having extra numbers put through it, because at the end of the day it's just reliant on shop staff recognising mugshots of people who have asked to be self-excluded.
There are quite a few people say, look, we're in the age of technology now, artificial intelligence and so on. Is there no way that could be brought to bear at a betting shop?
Absolutely, and I'm already aware of gambling companies that are using technology to spot regular customers when they come into their shops. So why can't we use some of this technology to have a proper national self-exclusion scheme covering all forms of gambling, not just betting shops, but bingo and arcades as well? And in the new year, we will be inviting technology companies to come and help us to bring forward ideas about this, because I'm absolutely sure there are better ways of doing this than the rather rudimentary system we have at the moment.
Yeah, the government has gone out to review, hasn't it, on how much you can gamble on these fixed odd betting terminals inside the betting shops. Currently, you can bet, I think, £100 every 20 seconds. They're talking about capping that at somewhere between £50 and £2, which is quite a big range. What do you make of that?
Well, clearly, we'd agree that the amount you can bet there needs to come down. But half of all gambling these days is online. So I'm worried that we've been focusing so much on that issue that we haven't considered the impact on a far larger group of people, and particularly on young people who are now so used to being online throughout their lives, where they have so much opportunity and so much advertising now thrown at them as well.
Interesting points. Really appreciate your time this morning. Thank you. That's Ian Corby from Gamble Aware. Now, overall responsibility for gambling in the UK lies with the Department for Culture, Media and Sport. We did invite them to appear on the programme. Sadly, they declined, but they told us they have been clear that they expect the gambling industry to do more on player protection. And they added, The Gambling Commission requires operators to take all reasonable steps to prevent self-excluded customers from gambling and receiving marketing material, and they are looking into the details of our 5 Live investigation. They say it is crucial that betting operators do all they can to identify and help players at risk from gambling-related harm at the earliest opportunity. And just to say as well that details of organisations offering information and support with addiction are available at bbc.co.uk/action line if you think you may have a problem with a gambling addiction, or you can call free at any time to hear recorded information at 08 000 155 947. We'll no doubt be returning to this evening when I sit in for Stephen Nolan from 10 here on 5 Live. Don't forget you can hear the programme shortly again via the podcast. Now a great afternoon of sport ahead with Jason Mohammed.
Adrian, thank you very much indeed. A very good afternoon to you. Coming up after 12, we shall continue the inquest into another awful day for England's cricketers as Australia move closer to regaining the Ashes. We've got 2 Premier League games today, including Manchester United's visit to West Bromwich Albion as they bid to stay in touch even slightly with Manchester City, and we've got full live commentary of Bournemouth v Liverpool at 4:30. We're also at Hearts, where Celtic can go 5 points clear at the top of the Scottish Premiership.
The Ashes are here. Follow the action on 5 Live and 5 Live Sports Extra. This is BBC 5 Live.
It's just gone midday. A very good afternoon to you. This is Jason Mohammed with 5 Live Sports. Sports Extra is the place to go for coverage from Rugby Union's Champions Cup this afternoon. 3 matches back-to-back starting at 12:45 with Wasps taking on La Rochelle.
This is BBC 5 Live.
So we'll bring you reaction from Perth very shortly after the latest BBC News with Richard Foster.
Thanks, Jason. Good afternoon. 6 people have been killed in a crash involving 6 vehicles in Birmingham early this morning. A 7th person is critically ill. 4 more needed hospital treatment. It happened near Edgbaston. Murray McGregor is from the West Midlands Ambulance Service.
An incredibly difficult incident because it spread over a fair distance, a lot of different casualties, some clearly very, very seriously hurt, and unfortunately with so many fatalities, that's devastating for the staff as well.
The Work and Pension Secretary David Gauke says extending the workplace pension programme to 18-year-olds will help young people prepare for their later years. It's currently only available for those aged 22 and over and earning above £10,000 a year. The company managing the self-exclusion scheme for problem gamblers says flaws in the system are a wake-up call. A 5 Live Investigates reporter was able to place bets in 16 out of 21 shops despite signing up. And Bradley Lowry will be honoured at tonight's BBC Sports Personality of the Year Awards. The 6-year-old Sunderland fan died of cancer back in July. He's getting the Helen Rollison Award for achievement in the face of adversity.
5 Live Breakfast.
I'm going to the Burdens for dinner. Follow all on social media. Every twist and turn. And it's also on our station, Christmas Extra. Full live commentary.
We don't do dinner parties.
No.
So I don't know quite how we're going to get ourselves through this one.
What are we going to say?
Got to keep it going.
Yeah.
In his Christmas jumper by the roaring fire.
Is it a wee bit milder this morning, Simon?
Mild is quite a strong word, Nicky. I would say less cold.
Oh, mild. That's a strong word.
So Len Goodman is here. He's the one man who can walk in the studio and make Simon King look scruffy.
I like your tie. I like the way it
matches the shirt, doesn't it?
And your eyeballs, yeah.
5 Live Breakfast. Back Monday morning from 6. This is 5 Live Sport with Jason Mohammed.
Good afternoon. Welcome to 5 Live Sport. And England are on the ropes in Australia.
Here goes Stark. Bowls. He's bowled him. He's bowled him. That looked like an excellent delivery from Stark. He's leaping around, and Vince's fine innings so far has come to an end.
Reaction to come from Down Under. Also today in the Premier League, Liverpool head to the coast to face Bournemouth.
And is there further punishments awaiting Brighton now? Salah carries. Salah goes on into the path of Firmino, and he buries it.
Full commentary at 4:30, and Manchester United go to West Bromwich Albion with Jose Mourinho saying there is no hangover after that Derby Day defeat.
The place was normal, as I like it to be. I don't like a circus when you win and when you are happy, and I don't like a sad place when you lose and you are not happy.
Northampton begin life after Jim Mallender in rugby's European Champions Cup.
I think it's a decision that when I joined I didn't expect that we'd be making, but as a board we feel it's now the right time to have made a really tricky decision, and clearly not one that we've taken lightly.
This is 5 Live Sport with Jason Mohammed.
So lots of rugby union around today. You can listen to 3 Champions Cup games live on Sports Extra today, starting with Wasps against La Rochelle from 1. More on that in just a moment. But we start with the cricket, and pretty bad news, I'm afraid. England are staring at an Ashes series defeat. They finished on 132 for 4 before rain stopped play. They're still 127 short of making Australia bat again. The home side declared earlier on 662 for 9 in their first innings. That is a lead of 259. Let's hear from Simon Mann.
Well, barring some heroic batting on the final day or some more poor weather, it feels just a question of when Australia will win the series and wrap up the Ashes. Rain did bring an early end to play, but Australia made enough progress on the 4th day of being confident of achieving their goal. Highlight for England today, 4 wickets from Jimmy Anderson. And Vince, he made a stylish 55 before he was dismissed by a superb delivery from Mitchell Starc, and that just emphasised Australia's superiority. Graham Swan alongside me. What chance England on the final day?
Well, slim chance, but a chance nonetheless. It all comes down to whether Bairstow and Malan come back for the majority, the lion's share of the day, however long that will be. Rain would help, don't get me wrong. 3 hours of it, 4 hours of it would be ideal. But yeah,